Coming to you from the HagmanReport.com studio, located in the Keystone State, birthplace of a mighty nation, it's your host, Doug Hagman.
And welcome to Hagman. It's the Hagman Report, where truth can't be silenced. Websites to the truth. HagmanReportLive.com. There you will find our audio, our video. And you know, one thing I'm going to do, I haven't even talked to Eric about this, but one thing I'm going to do is we're going to have a classics segment, I think. All right. I'm talking about interviews we've done with people like Serpico, Donnie Brasco, you know, the real Donnie Brasco, Joe Pistone. Some classics that will remain classics, timeless. Even Robert Epstein, that predicted, of course, or spoke about the election, the polling and such. And you know, it's interesting because a recent shock poll, okay, and this shouldn't shock anyone, really. A recent shock poll, this on the front of Drudge, every major Dem beats Donald Trump by at least 9. All right. The only reason I bring this up is to those people who say, oh, it's, hey, don't worry, everything's fine. I mean, it's going to be a landslide. Okay. Be careful. Just be careful what you're listening to out there. Video from 2005 raid on Epstein estate shows images of underage girls. Now, a couple of things. Yesterday, we were off air. We had to upgrade some equipment, turn some dials and knobs and tweak this and tweak that, and I don't know what happened. I'm not allowed near that stuff because I tend to play. But yesterday, I had spent a great deal of time talking with police officers. That's right, police officers. Actually, three different jurisdictions, if you can, about 3 different issues. One was this. This is New York now. I'm going to be coming out with a report that is going to connect the Epstein activities, including Bill and Hillary Clinton. Yes, I've got your emails. Yes, you know, I know Hillary was part of the junkets on Lolita Express. I know that, but there seems to be a disconnect among people, not our audience, but among people in general, that separates the Epstein from Pizzagate. Boy, just saying that word is gonna result in a potential ban. When I say Pizzagate, I'm not referring to a single pizza shop. I'm not referring to Washington D.C. only, and I'm not referring to whatever that guy's name is. I don't know, that pizza shop. I'm not referring to that only. I'm referring to that time period and the activities that are involved in the Podesta emails, okay? And that also drag in the Clintons. And this also goes to the DNC servers. It also goes to the Clinton servers. It goes to the Wiener laptop. That's, to me, that's what Pizzagate represents, not a pizza shop, not any of that. But I was speaking with a police officer in that realm who said, who told me, and I've talked to this individual before, and perfect track record. He said this: I've got some information that if we don't get this out, I don't know if it's ever going to get out. And he said, would you get it out on my behalf, on our behalf? He's actually speaking for more than just himself. And I said, absolutely. I would never hold anything back. If you, as a police officer, can authenticate this information, I will verify. I will broadcast it. And he said, it may be the last broadcast you do before they take you off. And they would take you off because of it. If that's what it takes, I'm willing to take that. I'm willing to take that chance, but I'm also willing to do that. And it won't be a result of anything objectionable in terms of anything visually objectionable. It has to do with truth. It has to do with connections. I knew this was a possibility Monday before we went into the dark period. Yesterday, it kind of confirmed it. Now, I don't know when this will be. There are two different things that have to happen in order for me to provide this information to you. I want to see the authenticating documents, the documentation. Essentially what that is the chain of custody. And then I want to see or have with me the names of the individuals that cultivated or accessed or acquired that documentation. So, authentication and provenance of the information, along with chain of custody before I release it. And I'll tell you this. If what I believe I know is on what I will be getting, there's going to be a lot of people looking at this, but you'll have it first. So I do want to keep you. It's not a matter of, this is not a teaser. This is not a tease or meant to be one. It's just letting you know the advances that this platform, that the Hagman Report, Eric the Tech, Doug Hagman, and everyone associated with this platform, what we're trying to do. Two more things. Wisconsin Christian News. Folks, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Wisconsin Christian News, wisconsinchristiannews.com. Do me a favor, subscribe to both the digital as well as the hard copy publication. Or, alternatively, or in fact, do both. And if you want, give the hard copy, give it out. Buy 2 subscriptions. Buy 4. This is so good. This is so good. This needs to be in the hands of every Christian out there. And also, please support Wisconsin Christian News. In addition to the subscription. If there is ever a business entity out there worthy of our support, it's Wisconsin Christian News. The link will be in the program description box on HagmanReportLive.com. The second thing, don't forget, I'm going to be at the, my wife and I are going to be at the Branson Conference. If you had, folks, listen to me, if you had signed up to have dinner with Steve and I, it's going to happen on Thursday night. Hang loose, okay? I'll send you an email from me personally. I'll give you all the details. Just hang on. Don't get nervous. It'll be Thursday night. But do me one favor. Okay? Do me one favor. Send me an email, doug@hagmanreport.com. And in the subject box, put Branson dinner. Just to let me know, even if I talked to you yesterday, I don't care. Just to let me know you're coming and the number in your party. Just so I can make triple sure that I don't do anything, that I don't screw anything up, okay? Your name. If it's Joe Smith and Joe and Jane Smith, Joe and Jane Smith, we're going to be there. And I'll have your email address. So that would indicate 2 people. That way, because I got something special, too, for you guys. I'm not going to go any further than that. Is Stan ready? Yeah. Okay. I don't want to take any more time up. I do want to set this up properly, though. I consider myself one of the luckiest guys in the world. You know why? Because this weekend, and I'm not going to get too deep into this except to say I received a message from Stan Deyo. He said, look what I found, or I found this. And I was one of the first to get that message. So I thought, okay, thank you, Stan. And then I looked, and he kind of explained a little bit, not a lot, but you're going to hear the explanation as to how this came about. In other words, how he found it and what he found and why it's so significant. But he's probably, and I'm going to turn this over to him, but he's, to me, one of the most intelligent guys I know. And when I looked at this, and then I looked at all of the historical records that are associated with this topic he's going to bring up, Stan's the guy. Folks, I'm going to tell you right now, as an investigator, the guy checks his work. He's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant researcher, archaeologist, Indiana Jones. So do me a favor. Support Stan too, and Holly. Go to standeo.com, show images page there, but also support them by your monetary support, or even better, myempshield.com. Use promo code Hagman for $50 off. But Dare to Prepare, Holly's tremendous book, Cosmic Conspiracy, and all of the other work products of Stan and Holly Deyo. You need them, especially now more than ever. So I'm going to shut up now, and Stan's got the rest of this time period for this most exciting disclosure. Stan, thank you so much for your patience.
Hey, no problem. I used the time to kind of do some more updating of the show images page. I was up till 2:30 this morning on the topic we're going to be talking about, and as a result, your main show images page is kind of falling behind. I've got images up, but storyline's not linked. I'll do that after the show so that you can see what I address. Briefly on your show images page, the normal one.
Right.
I've got several images up there, but as I say, they're not linked yet. One is at the very bottom there at slide 41. When you get to the big picture of it, it will be a graph showing in the red line how all these super duper forecast models for global warming and things like that, how they failed compared to what actually has happened here. Let me just check something here while I'm talking about that.
Have you even slept since like this weekend? I mean, my goodness.
Not much. No, this has been exciting. Wow.
It blew my mind. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're getting there eventually. Let's see. Is that okay? Sorry.
Oh, you take your time, man. I mean,
wow. What a rush this weekend. I've rebuilt the world in three days. I think I'm going to be called, instead of an Indy Jones, a paleogeologist is what they call what I've been doing. Had to look it up after I talked to you just to see, what qualified. But wow, and that's the wrong. Hey?
Yeah, you're just. I don't know. They might have to invent they might have to invent a whole new industry for you. I mean, I don't, not just a name, but an industry. My goodness, what you've done from the Garden of Eden to, well.
Right. Okay. Now,
go on.
Okay. Hold that thought. Thank you, though. That graph there at 41, as I say, I haven't got the big one linked. I had to look at my database here. This is global bulk atmospheric temperature from the surface of the Earth up to 50,000 feet. And it's plotted from 1975 to 2025, where it goes off the graph. Now, the red line is all you can see there in that little icon at slide 41. But that red line is the computer-generated model saying how hot it's going to get. Well, then when you take the actual data that was observed from balloon and satellite data, in the green and blue dots underneath it, you see that the computer estimates for global warming are so far off the charts wrong that you have to laugh. But look at this and see that reality, the green and blue dots on that graph, are what is really happening with temperature rises on the planet versus what they predicted. And that's just showing you how ridiculous this whole global warming thing is, for actuality. Now, slide 44 and 45, I've got a couple of dragons up there. These are either from the Sumerian region, Babylonian, or from China, Asian dragons. One of the things I found interesting about these dragon images from both sides of the planet is that the feet are like clawed in the back and like lion's feet in the front, and with a tail, and with like a horn or a curly thing on top of the head. Now, why did these cultures so far apart have a dragon god or demigod in their mythology? And I think it gets back to the fact that some of these ancient alien programs you see on the Discovery Channel might well have uncovered the fact that not only these cultures, but many other cultures in the world have a term for dragon as Dagon, D-A-G-O-N, or Dogon. And in Asia, it's slightly different. But the thing is that they all represent this great, powerful beast with, D-G-N type letters, which, in European legends, the dragon is what, was slain in mythology by a knight. And it's the Christian slaying of the dragon Satan. So these things, I've got more to say on this when I get these things linked, but these things are of interest. Now, I've got two slides duplicated, 43 and 47 in the rush, but it's something that I want to discuss about an ephah. Now, in the Bible, I was watching Hal Lindsey this weekend. There is a story about an ephah being filled with that evil woman, the goddess of Babylon, if you wish, and being sealed in at the top there was a certain amount of lead weight to seal her in so she can't get out. And then two angel-type beings with wings picked her up from the plain of Shinar over there and flew her to what's called her base and deposited her. Now, as I say, I've got a couple more slides to go up on this, but the description of it and the drawings of this Ishtar, which was the derivative of this woman goddess in Babylonian and Sumerian times, is very much like the one that the designer of the Statue of Liberty did. And so, again, I'll have those links up there after the show. There's a guy on the left there, a preacher, who had a dream vision of the rapture, which was, quite convincing. And it's a video I'll link you to. And then there's a guy on problems with the sun up at 51, and then Christians in persecution over in Iran. And then the money slide here is slide 49. It's called the Lost Land Bridge of Lemuria. Now let's click on that and get over there.
Now it's a party.
Now it's a party. This is what I discovered over the weekend and called Doug about. I'd heard, the New Age stuff about Lemuria and Mu, and Mu was probably Atlantis, but some say Lemuria was also called Mu, this mythical land that was destroyed and sank beneath the waves. And Madame Blavatsky and all those kind of New Age, weird people have been channeling spirits from Lemuria and Mu and saying how they were at war with Atlanteans, which is close by, and blah blah blah. And I thought this is interesting because I was looking at a documentary, probably on National Geographic, about lemurs. I thought Lemuria. Oh, I wonder if that's related. So then, in slide 24, I went over to read an article about Philip Schlatter and Ernst Haeckel, both like paleogeologists, but also paleobiologists. Anyway, studying ancient cultures and lands. And the guy on the left. How do I say? Is your picture black and white?
Yes.
Huh, I wonder why. Mine's not. Anyway, the oh, come on.
I'm seeing colors, noodles. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it is
No,
a grayscale. Great, Tom.
Oh, I don't know why I must not recognize it. Probably the wrong kind of file format or something. Okay. Anyway, the article linked down there in the text is Lemuria, the fabled lost continent that turned out to be real, almost. Now, this is in April 2018. They put this article out. And if you scroll down underneath that first photo, just let me read this out. Forget all you know about plate tectonics, evolution, and the study of DNA for a moment. Back in the mid-1800s, a few scientists working from scant evidence decided there must have been a lost continent in the Indian Ocean, and they called it Lemuria. On this lost continent, some even thought that there once lived a race of now extinct humans called Lemurians, who had 4 arms and enormous hermaphroditic bodies, but nevertheless are the ancestors of the modern-day humans and perhaps also lemurs. And remember, this is, the nonsense that was taught back in the late 19th century, or postulated anyway.
Right.
And as absurd as all this sounds, the idea flourished for a time, both in popular culture and some corners of the scientific community. Of course, modern science has long since debunked the idea of Lemuria altogether. Wrong. But then in 2013, geologists discovered evidence of a lost continent, precisely where Lemuria was said to have existed, and the old theories start cropping up again. Now, that was 6 years ago they discovered. Lemuria theories first became popular in 1864 when British lawyer and zoologist Philip Schlatter wrote a paper entitled The Mammals of Madagascar and had it published in the Quarterly Journal of Science. Now, this is scientific stuff, not the woo-woo type science. Schlatter observed that there were many species of lemur in Madagascar, many more than there were in either Africa or India, thus claiming that Madagascar was the animal's original homeland. More, he proposed that what had allowed lemurs to first migrate to India and Africa or Madagascar long ago was a now lost landmass stretching across the southern Indian Ocean in a triangular shape. This continent of Lemuria, Schlatter suggested, touched India's southern point, southern Africa, and Western Australia, and eventually sunk to the ocean floor. This theory came at a time when the science of evolution was in its infancy. Notions of continental drift weren't widely accepted, and many prominent scientists were using the land bridge theories to explain how various animals once migrated from one place to another. A theory similar to Schlatter's had been proposed by French naturalist Etienne Geoffroy Saint-Hilaire 2 decades earlier. Thus, Schletcher's theory gained some traction in the scientific community. Soon, other noted scientists and authors took the Lemuria theory and ran with it. Later in the 1860s, German biologist Ernst Haeckel began publishing work claiming that Lemuria was what allowed humans to first migrate out of Asia, believed by some at the time to be the birthplace of humanity, and into Africa. Close, but no prize. Haeckel even suggested that Lemuria, also known as Paradise, may have been the very cradle of humankind itself, as he wrote this in 1870. The probable primeval home or paradise is here assumed to be Lemuria, a tropical continent at present lying below the level of the Indian Ocean. The former existence, which is in the tertiary period, seems very probable from numerous facts in animal and vegetable geography. And then underneath that, there's a hypothetical map they drew about the migrations from this mythical Lemuria in the middle of the Indian Ocean, showing the various races. They have, they have 12 races of man, and little arrows with numbers on them spread out all over. That's the one there, Eric. Yeah, it's a big picture. You can click it and zoom onto it. And it shows the migration from this mythical place in the middle of the Indian Ocean. With the exception of the fact that it's wrong, the starting point is over at to the left there at number 4-ish. I'm just trying to see where that is. About number 3, where the Garden of Eden is, and the migration pattern started from there, not in the middle of the Indian Ocean. But with that exception, most of this is where geneticists have traced the migration patterns of man. Okay. Without such knowledge, many continue to embrace the notion of Lemuria because they didn't have plate tectonics and modern knowledge about it, right?
Right.
And the Russian occultist or medium Elena Blavatsky published The Secret Doctrine in 1888. This book proposed the idea that there were once 7 ancient races of humanity, and that Lemuria had been the home of one of them. This 15-foot-tall, four-armed hermaphroditic race flourished alongside the dinosaurs, Blavatsky said. Fringe theories even suggest that these Lemurians evolved into the lemurs we have today. Okay. Afterward, Lemuria understandably found its way into novels, movies, and comic books well into the 1940s. Many people saw these works of fiction and wondered where authors and filmmakers got these fanciful ideas. Well, they got their ideas from scientists and writers about 75 years before. Okay, now back to the show, or to the...
Before you move on, I just want a couple of questions. One question first. Lemuria and Atlantis, 2 separate things, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. The second thing, Lemuria, that kind of came, as you mentioned, it became popular with the writings of the Theosophy Society, Blavatsky, and the what would you call it? The spiritual guidance from reportedly gotten from Lemuria. In other words, she spoke about that. It first presented the spiritual teachings about or regarding Atlantis and Lemuria, chiefly, as you mentioned in her book, The Secret Doctrine. So just to be clear, and that has its place today in the New Age movement, and I'll just leave it at that. But okay, all right. So that's okay.
Yeah, it does, and there have been other New Agers who have channeled spirits from Lemuria or Atlantis or whatever, and talked about how they were close to each other, Lemuria and Atlantis, and how they were at war with each other, and then how they were both destroyed, in this great flood that sank them.
Right.
The reason I find this so important is that because of the fringe use of this Lemurian civilization and the concepts of it, it's anti-Christian. Okay, what Blavatsky and her ilk have done is create a lie, in essence, to support things about genetics and interactions with human beings by other beings to produce these hybrids. Certainly, Genesis 6 does talk about that, but Blavatsky's stuff and all their channeled information stuff is garbage. And so, for people that are caught up in that, I'm going to show you where Lemuria was and where a lot of it still is today, and you can even walk on the dirt of it. Now, if you look at slide 22, click on the picture. This is something I used in my Atlantis and Garden of Eden lectures, trying to show, and I did prove, what caused the flood. And if you look at the kind of magenta circle there at the base of the arrow, you'll see that this is a gravity map of the planet showing the thin areas of the crust and the thick areas of the crust. And you'll see that something scooped out an area of about 280 feet deep over the entire Indian Ocean, or basically at the bottom of it there, scooped that out and shoved it underneath Indonesia over into and under New Guinea. And you can see that red means a very high gravitational constant versus very low one in the magenta. This means that something really, really big, I mean, look at the size of that magenta crater, something a little bit smaller than that, but huge, like maybe a comet or something, hit that area, and it hit so hard that it splashed India up, the southern India, up into the air. It broke Madagascar off of Africa to the left there. It shoved Africa and Saudi Arabia to the left, and up and to the left, and it swamped part of the, with 2 miles of sea bottom, it swamped the southern half of the Saudi peninsula there and part of Yemen, or sorry, not Yemen, part of Somalia. And then it shoved Indonesia, which used to be connected right almost to touch shores. So there's a little bit of water in between it, to India, and it shoved all of that landmass, including Australia, to the left and down. To the right and down. These things. This was catastrophic. It wasn't plate tectonics. It was a huge, massive asteroid or comet that hit the Earth so hard that it shoved the surface, the crust of the Earth, and splashed it, shoved India up into China, and moved all of these islands, nations, and New Zealand and Australia and New Guinea, shoved them over to where they are today. Now go back to the charts there, the main charts. And let's look at the Earth now, slide 21. It's a big map. It might take a minute to load in. But this is a really accurate map of the sea bottom, the bathymetry between Africa and Australia and Indonesia. And if you put your mouse in over next to that yellow line to the left of Australia and zoom on it, you can see that it's there's a ridge running down between the Indonesian block and India. Just put up there in that green area, and you can see, up higher. Up there. Okay, see that ridge on the left there? That was where something, a landmass was. And I looked at that, and I looked over to the right there where that gray area is next to that ridge, and I see landmasses today that fit exactly that. If you bent that around from where it was previously bent, you can see that those kind of mountainy regions under the ocean there would have lined up with that straight ridge. So, and I'm going to explain this a lot better in a minute. But and if you look at that red dot there over the top of Australia in Indonesia, zoom into that. See that red dot and that pointy thing right? Okay. Right there. Yeah, that red dot. Just zoom into that. Are you zoomed in?
There we go. Stand by. Here we go.
Okay, and move to right. Okay. Now, what you see there, that red dot with kind of a half egg shape pointing to the right toward New Guinea, is where this asteroid or this comet dived into the Earth. So that piece of dirt that we're looking at there, where that red is, oh gosh, what happened there? That piece of dirt was originally further to the right, or sorry, to the left, over near that ridge, and that's where that great asteroid carved out that big chunk of blue or magenta we saw in the last slide, and it hit so hard that it bent all the land masses and Australia and things east of that down into their current position. So now go back to slide 20. So for about 36 hours, I worked on this graph that you see here, showing where Africa, Atlantis, India, Indonesia, Australia, where they all were when this huge asteroid struck. Now zoom in right in the middle of all those things underneath India.
All right, hang on. There we go.
Okay. Now, all these little pieces here, I've followed the mud map in the ocean floor of where they were shoved from and put them back into where they started from. So all these land masses were touching Africa, Saudi Arabia, Madagascar, India, Indonesia, Australia, even down to New Zealand is that far, and further southeast of that. All these things were one landmass. So the perplexity that these zoologists had in the 19th century was there had to be something for the lemur to migrate from Madagascar, left or west to Africa, and up into India, and over to Indonesia, and then years ago, a form of it in Australia even. How did they get there if there wasn't a bridging landmass? Well, there was no landmass in the middle of the of the Indian Ocean, except India. And it was, the shape you see there is not how India looks today, but that's because if you zoom in at the top of the map on India, just click on that to see, right there, click on that white area above the word India, right there. And
all right, we're working on it. There we go.
Okay. All right. Go further right. Yeah. Okay. What you see there is a wrinkled landmass which formed the Himalaya mountains. A lot of mountains, and they're wrinkles from when this asteroid splashed into the India, as you see it in this drawing, it lifted it up in the air, like you can imagine this big splash thing coming in, bang, and then the backsplash lifted the whole southern end of India up in the air and shoved it toward China, forming all these wrinkle masses. And that's why today we find seashells and a lot of sea bottom fossils in the Himalaya mountains at thousands of feet altitude, because it used to be down a lot closer to the ground, or to the seafloor. And it was pushed up by this asteroid that hit approximately where that red arrow is, down beneath, and then the red arrow hit where Australia is, or was at the time, shoved Australia down to where it is, and then the blue arrow shows where it ended up, underneath New Guinea. Now, the impact left a hole, which you saw in the first big graph, that what's called the Band of Sea today, but it's the entry point of this large asteroid, comet, whatever it was, and it left a footprint so obvious that it's amazing to me that no geologist ever found it. There's another one like it, south tip of Argentina, which they have found, but this is a bigger form of that. And this is what caused the legendary Lemuria to disappear. And it answers the mystery that the 19th century scientist, the zoologist that we were talking about, postulated, is how these lemurs propagated across these countries. Now, let's see what map this is.
Would this have been a direct hit on Lemuria? I mean, is that what you're saying, or
it would have been yes, a direct hit right in the middle of what would have been Lemuria? Of course, it hit in between India and Indonesia in this graph in 19, and it split everything apart over there. And the impact was so violent. I mean, it was huge. I'm going to show you a footprint of it in a minute here. It was so huge that Africa got shoved around to where it belongs now, and India got crammed up into China, and the Indonesian islands got broken up and shoved westward and southward. Australia got shoved down to where it is now. And in fact, I've been talking to the Australian National University on the northeast coast of in the research station, northwest coast of Australia. And I asked them, had they found any large impact signals or minerals or clues to a large asteroid hitting in that area? Yes, they had. They had drilled down there in the northwest coast, and they'd found little glass spherules, those little round glass balls that are formed when a high energy impact occurs on the surface of the Earth. And they said they couldn't find the asteroid. So I said, well, look up in India, on the east coast near the Kudapa Basin, and see if the timeline matches between that and the time that you were drilling into there in Australia to get this specimens. Well, he said, no, the one in India doesn't match. What I'm going back to them with now is, okay, I found the asteroid impact ridge that you need to test for age, and that is the one in the Band of Sea. And let me see, which one was the age one? Okay. I went back to, I'm going back to slide 21, Earth Now, and I'm going to zoom in on that little red pointer just above the Australian plate that we looked at a while ago. You will notice on this graph, you can look down at the bottom of it later, that the older land masses in the sea are greenish to blue, and the more recent are orange, yellow, red. And you'll see that impact, that crater there, that little red dot, is as current as the ridges spreading on the, in the Pacific and in the Atlantic, with those red lines following the plate tectonics. So it was a recent hit that formed that. That tells you that this was the beastie that did it. So if they can look there, and in the gray material around it, they'll find that the age of it, that's what I'm going to tell the Australian scientists, that the age of that gray landmass around that impact crater will match the northwest specimens of the asteroid impact zone that they found. So once we do that, then I've got them on board completely. I talked to two of them. One says, "Oh, it can't be," and the other one said, "Well, the only problem is the age and the strata." And I've now, I think, proven to this point that they match. and we'll get some official support for my position on this. This asteroid, this Kudapa asteroid or comet, whatever, is a thing that changed the history of the world. It occurred. It made the flood. It destroyed, the Saudi Peninsula. It covered the southeastern part near Oman. It covered that in 2 feet of seabed and sand. It disappeared Lemuria. This incident is bigger than anyone really realizes. This could have been, instead of the Chicxulub asteroid killing the dinosaurs, this killed the dinosaurs and darn near every other living thing on the surface of the Earth. This is the central point of all the research I've done to find the Garden of Eden, Atlantis, and Lemuria now, of course, and the cause of the Great Flood. A few other things involved in that as well.
When you say the cause of the Great Flood, I just want to make this clear. Are you talking about the consequence of the water? We're not talking about causing internal springs to flood from inside the Earth. We're talking about a calamitous event. Are we not?
Well, yeah, we're talking about a calamitous event. Now, remember, Noah was over in Saudi Arabia, up near, the peninsula up near Syria and above that just slightly. Somewhere in that area. He was a citizen of Atlantis, and he got wood from the Rub al Khali forest that's now fossilized trees in the southeastern Saudi peninsula. But he was there. And in the biblical account, the angels had him get the animals in and then sealed him in the ark. And then rain started to fall. That's the way the story goes. But it leaves out a lot of the in-between. And here's what happened. This Kudapa asteroid hit in the Indian Ocean on the east coast of about the middle of the original Indian landmass. When it did, it was so powerful, so big, it boiled the water up into the heavens, into the skies, and we had cloud canopies for weeks, months after that. But this hot steam from that alone came up and started to condense and make rain for the first time. Instead of dew watering the earth, it was rain coming from these condensing clouds of steam formed by this huge asteroid impact. And if you do any studies on what happens when a big asteroid hits our planet, on land or in water, you'll see discussions of this. You'll see how it threw the ejecta back, because its angle is about 34 degrees coming in. It threw its ejecta back over Saudi Arabia, and it lifted up India and Madagascar and even Africa a bit, shoving them into their new current places. And the fountains of the deep is when the crust of the earth is broken up. Make no mistake, that big magenta hole there in the Indian Ocean I showed you in slide 22 is where something went down in and broke up the crust of the earth, allowing these geysers of hot water coming up from underneath the earth in probably the Moho discontinuity or one of those areas there, to also contribute to the hot seas. Of course, further away from the place where it was broken up in the ocean you get, the cooler it became, it dissipated. But that's why in the Hebrew it tells you about the hot springs coming up, geysers from the surface of the earth underneath it, and also the rain. 40 days of rain.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. Well, and boy, this solves so many geological mysteries and stuff. And plate tectonics, you can throw plate tectonics out the window. It is not valid. They have adopted this instead of the catastrophic model because they couldn't figure out how the catastrophic model could have done this. But all they needed to do was look at the mud maps and the gravitational anomaly maps, which of course we haven't had until 10 years ago. So science has got to catch up with where we are now. These continents were all joined together. I just showed you the ones for Lemuria, but around them were others that formed what is called the not Gondwana, but the I'm drawing a blank here. When all the continents were together anyway, and what's it called? Yeah, Pangea. Sorry, my mind is tired. Anyway, so Pangea was broken apart by this incredible event, which even like Peleg, Noah's grandson, I think it was told, the earth divided in your time. And this impact caused a long period, a century, maybe a century and a half of expansion of the planet as well. It as it did, all these broken up continents in Pangea spread further and further apart rapidly. I mean, compared to inches per year, they tell you about tectonic plate drift and continental drift and that kind of stuff. It didn't happen that way. It wasn't uniform at all. This was catastrophic. It proves the Bible in so many ways and gets rid of all this junk science, in the New Age movement and stuff. I don't want people to be confused by them and to follow them because of what seems to be real history that they get from channel beings and that kind of stuff. This is a fact, and if you appreciate what I do, backing it up with fact, this is hard fact, and this is what they call Lemuria. And get this, yeah. Go to slide 16. Now, and 16 up in the top right edge of it, you'll see the tip of India as it is today. And all these little sensor areas, red quake areas, and whatever. Disregard those. Look at the circular blue ring, dark blue ring, around the tip of India today. That is, I think, part of the impact region that has moved as the planet expanded. And if you call that the diameter, the first ring diameter of an asteroid impact, you're talking about a thing hundreds of miles in diameter. So anyway, you can look at that map later. That's that one. Go to slide 17 now. On slide 17, you see that same area with depth shading, and you'll see a little blue area off the coast of southern India there, up the top of this. Well, slightly up there. It's the top of my screen, but anyway, it's you'll see an arc of mountain ranges on the east coast of India, kind of curving around a bay there. It's kind of orangey pink, and then there's a little blue circle there. I think that when India was stretched out, that longer than this, that was a remnant of the impact zone, which was actually further down on the surface underneath Sri Lanka there. But this blue area shows a scar, a shadow, in essence, of the impact crater. Now, that tells me probably a more accurate size of the asteroid, which would be something in the order of, 100 miles. It's a planet breaker, that one, I'll tell you what. It darn near broke our planet.
If I can go back to a little bit of correspondence you and I had, Lemuria, it's between Hawaii, Hawaii was just thrown far away by the first impact, and then by a second one, Lemuria was destroyed the same time as Atlantis.
No, I think that there was one major impact, Kudapa, but there was some smaller asteroids that hit after that, which, if you look at map 18,
okay. If
you look at map and put your mouse kind of sort of in that little hook shape up near Hawaii, and click on it anyway, you'll see that if you measure the island chain that's submerged all the way up to Hawaii from where it starts in the Aleutians and fold it back over to the left into the Asian coast, to Japan and down into the Marianas Trench, you'll see that whole string of islands that are, only part of it now above sea level, that was on the eastern edge of the Lemuria chain of islands. And when the big asteroid hit, it shoved them over toward where the Marianas Trench is before it was a trench. And then two other asteroids hitting in China and in the Philippines pushed it further over to where it is today. This is why in Hawaii they say that they have ancestors from the ancient land of Lemuria, buying into the Blavatsky model and stuff. But the Polynesians are kind of a mystery. Where they came from. I mean, the Maoris, the Hawaiians, and various islander groups out in the Pacific. They're big people generally, but there's also legends which even the Irish talk about the little people. And if you're a fan of Tolkien's work, The Hobbit, on right in the middle of what they call Lemuria, if you look at slide 15, you see an artist's rendition of several skeletons they've reconstructed from the area of the Flores Islands, and this was a hobbit living in the middle of Lemuria, if you wish. And you can look that up online and see about them. The I have to wonder if some of them didn't survive even to go further into Europe, and the legend that the Irish have about the little people, the Hobbit stuff. Tolkien wrote his whole series based on what he could translate from old Irish runes and stuff that he could translate as best he could, and he generated this whole thing about good guy, bad guy, about Sauron the Great and evil, and about the white magician that fought him and stuff. And you have tall people, short people, and evil things. All these kind of things he got out of the Irish legends, which could have migrated through Europe from this area here, from India, from Asia. It's just, wow, all these things kind of start to piece together the missing parts of our puzzle here, our crossword puzzle of the planet. Just, wow.
Yeah, and you've done so much to really piece this puzzle together. If I can just go back to the communication, the Kudaba asteroid turns out to be responsible for not only shoving India, as you mentioned, up into China, but breaking up and sinking most of Lemuria, tilting Atlantis, covering the Oman portion under 2 miles of seabed, destroying most of the dinosaurs living at the time, flipping the crust of the Earth upside down, causing the 23.4 degree tilt of the axis, causing the relatively rapid expansion of the Earth by about 33% of its diameter at the time, and a lot more. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you go back to slide 18, one of my favorite slides, it's a very high resolution gravitational map of the seabeds, bathymetry. And if you click in where India is there, where Sri Lanka is, that kind of thing, and zoom the map up there, you'll see that big depression, that lower gravity, where the asteroid impacted, just south of Sri Lanka, and of course it went eastward. And if you look at the slide, if you go to the right on this slide, whoops, gosh, come on, I'm trying to get over to New Guinea. You'll see that the high red regions are high gravitational concentrations of mass. And you can see from this, wow, you can see things like New Guinea, there's a large orange bulge underneath it, which is a mass concentration from the asteroid that shoved seabed from the Indian Ocean underneath New Guinea and up and stopped, before it exited the planet, I think. And then if you look above that hook hanging, that blue hook, the Marianas Trench, that tells you, whoa, gosh, look at that. There's a mass concentration in that hook. It's high and then low at the bottom. And if you go to the left, you can actually find on the coastline of the Philippines, just off the coastline, a little kind of area that you can't see well in this, but it's a little circular red area. It's where the asteroid that hit to form the Marianas Trench hit. And then if you look up toward China, where let's see where that hook of the Marianas Red Hook is. If you go left there about, I don't know, double the width of the red compression area, you see another asteroid hit there on the coast of China and traveled all the way down and dented the Marianas Trench path of the other asteroid. So 2 asteroids at least hit in this area after, or perhaps simultaneously with the Kudapa asteroid, shoving Hawaii and a lot of other little islands and stuff that got buried, but shoving them over to where Hawaii is today. All you got to do is just open your mind, look at these things, and trace the footprints in the seabed, the wrinkles, the shoves, the twists. It's there. I'm so excited about this. I don't know how I'm going to get modern science to even look at this, other than these guys over in Australian National University, and I'm sure going to push hard to get their support. But they're all looking for a huge asteroid that hit in the Indian Ocean somewhere to cause all this stuff to be thrown over onto Australia on the northwest coast. But anyway, who am I? I'm just a guy with no credentials.
Yeah, I don't think so. I just have to ask you this. Did you just wake up one morning, Saturday morning, and say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to look here? Or what inspired you for this? Because this is critical. I mean, this is important. It's
I
huge.
think, believe it or not, I think it was either. No, it was. Yeah, it was a ancient alien show. I watch that sometimes just to see what the nuts are doing out there on the Discovery Channel, and they mentioned something about Lemuria and this kind of stuff. And as I was watching it, kind of dozing off, I thought, "Whoa, Lemuria? Did it exist? Where did they say it?" Then it was on. I grabbed my iPad and I realized suddenly it's been before my eyes all this time. I've been researching, Garden of Eden and Atlantis. Look, nobody seems to be excited about this in the press or even in the biblical, community. But I really did find and prove the location of the Garden of Eden and Atlantis, where the crossbreeding occurred,
Yes.
and the asteroid impact that caused the flood. Now Lemuria, and explaining all kinds of zoological mysteries. Nobody seems interested. This has to be one of the greatest discoveries in archaeology and zoology that we've ever made.
It transcends all of those. One would think that this validates, in my view, the Bible, the historical account, the biblical account. It answers so many, as you say, so many questions. It's fantastic. All of these finds collectively.
I know. You can see my frustration because, Holly and I sit here. We got the hairs on the back of the neck stand out over the last 5 years. I've been researching these things, step by step.
Yep.
And as you make a discovery, you think, "Oh wow!" And then another one, "Oh wow!" And "Oh wow" is a very common expression around here. Holly's laughing, but yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, guys, yeah. Let's see. You got any more questions on these things?
No. We only have a few minutes left. I can't believe, though, the significance of this, Stan. And is there anything we can do, our audience can do, to shine some light on this for you?
Gosh, if they have qualified geologists or zoologists that might actually look into this to see my proofs, newspaper articles. Internet blog type things. We need to get this out as Christians. This is really important, and not just Lemuria, but Atlantis and Garden of Eden and the great asteroid impact. It caused all the flood. It was huge, and it circled the planet with tidal waves you would not believe. Several, washing animals and stuff into graveyards up in Alaska and various other places, into swirled graveyards. You don't get that with a gentle flood. You get that with tsunami waves sweeping across the planet. Oh, gosh, just so many things. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on your find. I mean that.
Thank you, sir.
Folks, please tell others about Stan's find. Point them to this segment, which will be a standalone segment. And, we need to shine some light on this. I think that, especially as Christians, this validates this validates the biblical history and secular history. It all fits together. You're looking for verification, validation. Here it is. Stan Dale proved it. Yeah. Wow. Yeah,
it's good to see that where we get we're augmenting what was told in Genesis. We got more information this way, which Moses was only given a short picture of it there in Genesis 6. There was a more detailed picture in the Genesis account, but Genesis 6 was on Atlantis and the crossbreeding and all that. And we had to go to the Greeks to get the answer to that. It wasn't that anything was wrong in the Bible. It's just that it needed to have be expanded so that people know that the truth about it. Why these things happen. They did happen, and the science behind it is this. Just wow! It's a wonderful witness tool. The young people are thinking today. The millennials aren't as crazy as you might think. They are investigating and opening their minds and going against convention. And this is a great witness tool. Great witness tool.
I totally agree, and it does give me some hope for today's young people, indeed, as they ask the questions and open their minds and look at this. Stan, in the minute we have left, is there anything else you can think of that we need to press?
Well, on another subject, there's a new worldwide threat assessment put out by the government. On slide 48 on your main show images page. I'll put the links up later. It's a PDF file.
Okay.
The government is increasingly wanting protection against EMP attacks because our world situation, due to trade imbalances and cultural differences in the Middle East, religious differences, we are looking at a flare-up of a nuclear exchange. Perhaps not Armageddon, but at least a limited nuclear exchange and a threat of war, global war, that will cause people to run to the peace treaty table in the Middle East, and the Palestinians will even do it, and so will the Iranians with Israel and with the Arab nations. One thing you might look at as far as relationships that President Trump was talking about, we've got Saudi Arabia, who is very close with Pakistan because of their nuclear arms and wanting to make deals to get nuclear arms into Saudi Arabia, and the president supporting Saudi Arabia in the peace treaty with Israel, and yet he's also over with the Indian Prime Minister in the G7 meeting, supporting them. So, and trying to get them to help, and the Pakistanians to help make peace between the two of them. So, President Trump is probably going to use Saudi Arabia, his connection there, as a leverage to try to get Pakistan and India to the peace table. There's just a lot of things happening in the news that are just unbelievable.
Interesting things falling into place. And that, of course, segues nicely into EMP Shield, EMPShield.com, the promo code Hagman. You know what? You might think that, hey, well, there's nothing we could do. Don't fall for that. Look, protect your whole home. This is the world's first whole home EMP protection device. It's listed by the Department of Homeland Security. Okay, in the February 2019 EMP resilience report. So, folks, do yourself a favor. Strengthen up. EMP Shield. It's a product of Standeo. I mean, it's his intellectual, along with his team, his intellectual property that is responsible for this. I mean, I'm thankful that we've got this ability. It's EMPShield.com.
And let me add to that, or expand it a bit. My partner Tim Carty was really, 90% of the development of this product. Asked him to make something for us in our own research, and so I've got to put credit where credit's due. So Tim is, the major genius behind all this. So
I'll tell you what, we thank you for this, and Lord knows how many people this by itself will save. And thank you for doing all that. We're out of time, Stan. I'm going to thank you for the research, and thank you for including me in that initial excitement of the find. I was really excited for you. And I tell you what, it got me reading quite a bit this weekend. I understand this now. I understand the impact. So no pun intended, but I get it. I get it now. So.
I got you.
Thank you, Stan.
It's been great talking to you, and you were the first one outside of Holly that I told about this. So
I feel blessed. Holly, thank you so very much for sharing your man with us and the world. That's Standeo, Standeo.com, Holly Deo as well. What a team. And of course, their family. Thanks, Stan. All right.
Thank you. Lord bless you, Ned. Bye-bye.
Lord bless.